You're listening to the micro version of the Savage Lovecast. www.savagelovecast.com.
If you're stuck in a relationship quandary, or if you're looking for sexual harmony, well, there's nothing you can't ask on the Savage Lovecast.
So I'm in Dallas, Texas, getting ready to jump on an airplane and go somewhere else. Not going to be here for long. But this morning I picked up the newspaper. You could say I read the news today in Texas, and oh boy. Story number one, the first story that popped out at me from the front page, religious protections okayed for adoption agencies. Quoting from the story in the Dallas Morning News, the Texas House has approved a bill that would provide legal cover to adoption and foster care agencies that turn away prospective parents or refuse certain services based on the agency's religious beliefs. Democrats and groups advocating for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender rights said it amounted to state-sanctioned discrimination. Republicans heralded the bill's passage as a step forward in addressing the state's foster care crisis. This is a defensive bill. It allows everyone to participate, said the bill's author, Representative James Frank, R. Wichita Falls. Yes, Texas has a foster care crisis. More kids in foster care than there are foster parents to look after those kids. And in actual fact, the bill doesn't allow everyone to participate, and it's not really a great way to address the foster care crisis. The bill is actually so broadly worded that it would allow adoption and foster care agencies to refuse to work with Jewish or Muslim couples who want to be foster parents, even if the agency was placing a Jewish or Muslim kid. And it would allow adoption and foster care agencies to place kids in foster homes with strangers, even if that particular kid had a gay relative who was qualified and willing to take them in. This is how Texas proposes to address its foster care crisis, by making it worse. Oh, and this also in the story about this bill, the Department of Family and Protective Services Bill of Rights were recently amended to remove explicit protections for LGBT children, according to KXAN-TV. More than 40% of homeless teenagers are queer kids who were thrown out of the house after they came out or were outed. So lots of the kids heading into the foster care system are queer, and many of them were abused, neglected, or made homeless in the first place by their violently homophobic or transphobic parents who were acting on their, quote, sincerely held religious beliefs. Queer kids who are in the foster care system because their biological families abused and rejected them for being queer are often, you hear from these queer kids later, often placed in foster homes headed by religious conservatives where they're abused and rejected all over again for being queer. But never let it be said that politicians in Texas only want to see queer kids suffer. They want all kids to suffer, queer and straight. Because in the other story on the front page of the Dallas Morning News that caught my eye, vaccine ban added to popular Child Protection Services bill. House members voted Wednesday to bar doctors from vaccinating new foster children, even against cervical cancer and head and neck cancers caused by the human papilloma virus, or HPV. Until a judge terminates parental rights, the parents' wishes on medical treatment for their children should be honored, argued GOP reps Bill Zedler and Tony Tinderholt, both of Arlington. There was actually one member of the Texas House, a Republican to be fair, Sarah Davis, who proposed to exempt vaccines from the ban that have been shown to prevent cancer. Her target was HPV, a virus that causes genital warts, reports the Dallas Morning News. There's actually a vaccine for HPV, and a really effective one, and that's the target of the bill. That's the vaccine that Zedler and Tinderholt were trying to prevent doctors from administering to foster kids. Religious conservatives hate the HPV vaccine because it allows people to have sex without having to risk at some point later in life dying of cancer. According to the CDC, 30,000, almost 31,000 cancers in men and women in the U.S. every year are caused by HPV, and cervical cancer, just in Texas, killed 429 women in 2014. Men, of course, are at risk to cancers of, as the Dallas Morning News correctly pointed out, the head, neck, anus, and penis. And vaccination rates in Texas are appallingly low for kids because religious conservatives don't like this vaccine. Forcing kids, especially older kids, in foster care to wait until the parental rights of their biological parents are terminated, a process that can take years, means these kids may not be vaccinated against HPV until they're sexually active and possibly infected, which is the whole murderous point. Religious conservatives fought the introduction of the HPV vaccine because it saves lives. And the reason religious conservatives hated the HPV vaccine so very much was it deprived them of a talking point in abstinence education classes. HPV is really common, as you know, if you're a regular listener to the show, you've talked about this a lot, and it's very easily transmitted. It can be transmitted through skin-to-skin contact. Condoms provide some protection, but not terrific protection. And so HPV, really common, and in a small number of cases has serious consequences, HPV infection. And abstinence educators, religious conservatives, love to cite the people who died of cancer because they had promiscuous sex outside the bounds of matrimony from HPV, died of an HPV-related cancer, to scare kids out of having sex. And then along comes this vaccine that means HPV doesn't have to be that scary anymore, and your kids won't grow up to die from cervical cancer or rectal cancer or penile cancer or throat cancer related to HPV infection. And religious conservatives lost their minds because they would rather you or your kids lose their lives than they lose a bullshit talking point, a scare tactic in their abstinence education courses. The CDC and me too, the CDC recommends that all children receive the HPV vaccine by age 12. I would recommend that all kids be evacuated from Texas immediately because with these assholes rattling around the Texas state legislature, with them having complete control and power in the Texas state legislature, thanks in part to GOP efforts to prevent people of color, poor people, working people, immigrants from voting, they're going to remain in power there and keep making Texas less and less safe for kids. Texas. It's actually a lovely place. I've had a great time here in the time I've spent here. I'm speaking tonight at a big theater. I'm going to meet a lot of lovely people. But, yeah, not a great place to be a kid, particularly an at-risk kid, particularly a kid in foster care, thanks to the idiots in the Texas state legislature. All right, coming up on today's show, tons of your questions, lots of my answers, and special guest Erica Moen here to answer a couple of questions and make her monthly sex toy recommendation. Stick around.
This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the easiest way to create a beautiful website, blog, or online store for you and your ideas. Squarespace features an elegant interface, beautiful templates, and incredible 24/7 customer support. Try Squarespace at squarespace.com and enter offer code SAVAGE at checkout to get 10% off. That's squarespace.com, offer code SAVAGE.
Today's episode is brought to you by ThreadUp, the largest online consignment and thrift store. Get 40% off your first order when you go to threadup.com/savage. That's THRED up.com/savage and enter promo code SAVAGE. This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Casper, an online retailer of premium mattresses for a fraction of the cost because everyone deserves a great night's sleep. Get $50 off any mattress purchase by going to casper.com/savagelove and entering the promo code SAVAGELOVE.
Hi, Dan. I'm a 25-year-old woman from Norway. I had this thing that happened to me a couple of years ago. I'm now 25, going on 26, and at the time I was, 22 or 23. And what happened was one of my best friends in my class, we were super close, we would sleep in the same bed, and I would show her trying bikinis and be like, do you think I should bring this or this or this to vacation and stuff? And then what happened was she came out to me when she was drunk and basically said that she was in love with me and that our entire friendship was, not a friendship, but it was based on her being in love with me. So what happened after that was I didn't feel comfortable helping her through this or holding her hand through coming out to her parents and all of that. And so she sort of said some mean things to me, which I understand. I mean, she was hurt probably, but I sort of just withdrew from the situation and we ended up not being friends anymore. I just wanted your advice on how to handle situations like that.
I think it's a little unfair to say when she revealed that she was coming out and that she had a crush on you, that your entire friendship was not a friendship. It was only based on her being in love with you. People fall in love with their friends. That happens a lot. There's a lot of people I know who are in relationships now who were friends first and that love grew. So ascribing to your friend some ulterior motive
all the way back to the beginning of the relationship, I think is unfair. And it points to, I think, in you, perhaps a little bit of lesbo panic. All right, you're in the room with this woman who's revealed to you that she's a lesbian and has feelings for you. And not only don't you reciprocate, you don't share those feelings, not only do you need to shut that down, but then you create a narrative that's most likely false that justifies you running from the room and ending the relationship. And that seems unkind and unfair. And not only to your friend, but you also cheated yourself out of her. There was a friendship there. There was a real connection there. It was different for her. She experienced it differently at some point, began to experience it differently than you experienced it. But there was something of value there that could have been finessed, preserved, perhaps. There are no guarantees. But we're not here to exhume that friendship and try to reestablish it. You want to know what to do if this should happen again in the future. Well, if someone comes out to you and then tells you they have a crush on you, or if there's no coming out that needs to happen, just someone that you are friends with reveals that they have stronger feelings for you, what should you do? Well, you don't want to do anything that might give them false hopes. You don't want to encourage them to carry that torch actively or passively. You don't want to lead them on. And there are instances in our lives where we see this happen, where someone clearly has a crush on someone else, and the person that the crush is had upon, the person who's being crushed on, is subtly exploiting the crusher. They're giving them just enough to keep them mooning after them and following them around and doing anything that they might want them to do. People will exploit and manipulate someone who has a crush on them. And it's like pornography, when you see it. You know that dynamic when you see it, and we've all seen it, and people have done it. It's not just that something that people observe. Sometimes people actually do that. Some of us are guilty of it. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to exploit, and you don't want to give someone false hopes. You also want to have clear boundaries. The exploitation can go the other way, particularly when there's a coming out involved and there's a straight person that is the object of the affection. The crushee, the crushers, the person who has a crush, the crushers, crushee, doesn't want to be perceived to be homophobic, doesn't want to not be supportive, and winds up in situations that make them uncomfortable that they don't know how to extract themselves from, where the crusher is being unfair, is manipulating the crushee into believing that if they don't allow the crusher to cuddle with them or snuggle with them or hold them or be intimate in ways that aren't appropriate to a friendship, that the crushee is homophobic, and the crushee, to avoid being homophobic or being accused of being homophobic, will wind up being intimate, not sexual, but intimate in ways that make them uncomfortable and are inappropriate. So be clear about your boundaries. I love you as a friend. I don't kiss and hug my friends. I don't cuddle on the couch with my friends. I love you as a friend. If the person who revealed their crush on you can't respect your boundaries, violates your boundaries, you have a right to end that friendship without guilt. And if they try to pivot from, I just needed to be held, and the fact that you won't hold me means you're homophobic and you're making me feel bad about being queer, you just shut that shit down. No, that is not what this is about. This is about, I don't cuddle my fucking friends. You don't see me hugging and cuddling my other friends, gay or straight. That is not something that is appropriate where I'm from to a friendship and how I conduct my friendships. I'm treating you equally. Nothing homophobic, and equal treatment. I'm treating you the same way I treat all my other friends. So basically that boils down to don't be shitty, right? Don't manipulate someone who has a crush on you, and don't allow yourself to be manipulated by someone who has a crush on you. Don't be shitty by manipulating, and don't put up with shittiness from a manipulator. Good luck the next time that happens to you.
Hey, Dan, this is a very strange question to ask. Recently I was hanging out with a friend, and it was a friend I've been friends with for about 10 years. And we dated for about 6 months, and then we just melded into friendship. It was very natural. Recently, she got married, and during this point, she moved away multiple times from New York to LA or to UK. Like, she had a lot of life to live. And she met a dude, got married, That's all fine. That's all good. I was hanging out with her tonight, and we both moved on in significant ways. I have no feelings towards her. She has no feelings towards me. But it came up during our dinner party that she was not cool with me saying in front of her husband that we had a history of dating, which kind of is confusing to me because, first of all, I present no threat. Second of all, we do have a bit of a difference when it comes to our general income. She makes a lot more. Her husband makes a lot more than I do. I'm kind of like a lesser caste. And he was not there. And she told me straight up that she did not want me to ever tell him in front of people or him that we ever dated. And I took a bit of an offense to this, and I'm not sure why. I feel like I was bothered by the fact that, like, maybe she's offended by the fact that she might have dated me in her past. And I feel like her husband should be fine with that because it was 10 years ago. But anyway, here I am left kind of sitting here being a bit depressed about the context of being kind of this weird thrown away mental trash. And I've never come to terms with that, just reckoning with the reality of being someone else's trash, but they still want to be friends with. How do I handle this? Should I just cut off this friendship just because it clearly is not worth it to me? And, you know, we're in a different caste system already. She's very wealthy with her wealthy husband, and I am kind of poor and doing what I can, but I'm happy about it. Like, I'm proud of who I am, but yeah, I just don't want to have this in my life.
Now, what I'm going to suggest is kind of radical, but I want you to go here with me. Just climb out onto this limb with me. Maybe it's not about you. Maybe it's not about your income. Let's ask ourselves, or actually, let me ask you, what is likelier, that your old friend and old flame's new husband doesn't care who his wife has fucked as long as she's never fucked a poor person? That it is about income, it is about caste? Or is it likelier that her new husband doesn't want his wife, or has feelings or insecurities or sads about his wife hanging out with guys who used to fuck her? Which do you think is likelier based on everything you've ever heard anyone say on this show about the relationships that they're in? The latter. There are a lot of people out there who aren't comfortable with the people that they're married to or the people that they're currently dating hanging out with their exes. Now, some of those people weaponize that. Some of those people are abusers and abusive and manipulate and control and terrorize the people that they're with about their exes. But sometimes people just have a little bit of a raw nerve ending about that. It makes them insecure. Maybe they had a relationship with someone who left them for an ex, and it just is this stone in their shoe. And they don't terrorize, and they're not abusive. They just want a little consideration, a little accommodation, a little sensitivity. And so rather than cut you out of her life, your old friend said, yeah, we just might want to keep the fact that we're used to date from my husband because ... She, I think, owes you an explanation, but I think the explanation is so obvious that maybe she thought she didn't have to give it. Because I rarely hear people say, I'm fine with my girlfriend hanging out with her ex-boyfriend who's wealthy, but not her ex-boyfriend who's a busboy. Never, never, never. I only want rich dicks in my girlfriend's past and her pussy in the past. No poor dick. No, that it never comes up. It's telling that that's where you went, though. You know, if my theory is correct and the husband of your friend is insecure about her spending time with exes, I have another theory, which is that you're insecure about your income. And that's why your head went there first. And I don't think you should be insecure about your income. It takes all kinds. It takes all pay grades. There are a lot of people leading lives that they find very fulfilling that aren't very financially rewarding, in part because our system is rigged and people are getting fucked. But better you should live the life that gives you pleasure, even if it doesn't give you yachts, than be an investment banker and be fucking miserable and own a goddamn yacht. Live your life. Pursue your passions, and maybe money will come or maybe money won't come, but you will lead then a rewarding life full of passionate shit. And don't be insecure about it. Your friend and her husband make a lot of money. Maybe they've got a vacation home. Maybe being a good friend to them means you get to glom onto a little bit of that glamour. And maybe that'll be nice for you, or maybe it'll just make you feel worse about the fact that you don't own a vacation home and may never. But come on. It's not about your income. It isn't. It's about him. It's about her marriage. It's not about you. It's about them. It'll make you feel better. You can ask your friend, like, what's the deal? Why is it that I can be your friend and be in your life, and your husband's okay with you having male friends, but this detail about our distant past isn't something you want me to share with him? And I guarantee you, 99% chance that the answer you're going to get is husband insecure about exes, not husband only wants rich dick in wife's pussy at any point in her life. That is an answer I don't think anyone has ever gotten ever to that question. Due to the rise of fast fashion, textile waste has risen from 7 to 30% in the past 5 years. Resale is a smart alternative that is good for the planet and your pocketbook too. ThreadUp makes it easy to shop resale from the comfort of your own couch. Score your favorite brands like Ann Taylor, Old Navy, and Michael Kors for up to 90% off. At ThreadUp, you can score an H&M dress for $5, a Gap jacket for under $10, and a pair of JW Crew flats for only $8. ThreadUp is the world's largest online thrift store. You experience the thrill of thrifting with none of the hassle. ThreadUp adds over 15,000 items to their site every day, which gives you thousands of ways to give your wardrobe the style update it and you deserve. Search by your favorite brands like Lululemon, J. Crew, Gap, Steve Madden, and H&M, and you can filter by size, color, price, and style to easily find what you're looking for. Every item at ThreadUp is triple inspected by hand, ensuring only the highest quality. When you place your order, all your like-new treasures will arrive neatly folded and packaged in ThreadUp's signature polka dot box. They offer free shipping on qualified orders and easy returns. Head over to threadup.com today to save 90% off retail on your favorite brands. Plus, right now, go to threadup.com/savage to get an extra 40% off your first order. Threadup.com, which is spelled threadup.com/savage. Remember, you get an extra 40% off right now at threadup.com/savage.
Hi, Dan. I'm a gay man in my early 30s. I've been with my boyfriend for about 5 years now, and we have a really great relationship. We have a lot of fun together. I feel like it's solid. But several months ago, we both started playing around with the idea of hooking up with other boys through the various apps, just sort of for fun, looking around, and then that sort of led to the occasional threesome on vacation, and mostly together, not separately. Recently, he met a boy on Grindr, and I say boy because he's 18. He's always been into younger guys, which I'm totally cool with and also sort of into. But, of course, my first concern was your campsite rule and making sure that, however this went down, that, someone that young wasn't going to get hurt and everything was just going to be fun and positive. So at first, this boy hung out with us a lot, and we sort of did stuff as a threesome. We played and just had a good time. But gradually, my boyfriend and this guy have gotten closer to each other and definitely have an intimate relationship, an emotional relationship. And I sort of was okay with it at first, but I'm realizing now that it's kind of bothering me because I never wanted a poly relationship. That's not what we agreed to or signed up for. It was always meant to just be sort of fun hookups, no strings attached. So now I sort of just feel like the platonic third wheel when I'm with them. And I told my boyfriend how I feel, and he understands, but he also has real feelings for this guy. And I now feel like I'm sort of being asked for him to choose. I'm not really jealous, I don't think. I just never really wanted this sort of threesome where I'm not really in the relationship. I'm afraid of ruining this amazing relationship, but I'm also afraid of hurting this other guy if, I ask my boyfriend to, spend less time with him or just reject him outright.
I tried to call you because I was curious about the timeline here, but you were not accepting calls when we reached out and tried to call you. Really curious about the timeline because you say that you've been with your boyfriend for 5 years and you began to play around with the idea of having sex with other people, and you only began to play around with the idea of three ways and maybe playing with other people a little bit a few months ago. And over the course of those few months, you went from the discussion to threesomes on vacation. And then you say your boyfriend you two recently met this 18-year-old guy on Grindr and had a three-way. And this relationship has now progressed to a point where you feel like the platonic third wheel, where you feel like your boyfriend got a boyfriend and has imposed polyamory on you, and his real passion is for this kid, and this kid's real passion is for him, and you're just sort of there. And all of that transpired in the last 3 months, which, how long has your boyfriend and how long have you been messing around with this 18-year-old, this adult that you met on Grindr? Because if it's only been a couple of weeks and they're just flipped by the NRE, the new relationship energy, as the polyamorous kids call it, not that you wanted to be polyamorous, it seems to me that this is something that could just flame out rather quickly, that this is going to burn hot and burn fast. That said, you still have to have a conversation with your boyfriend about what it is that he wants going forward. Your boyfriend got a boyfriend without getting his boyfriend's okay about the bonus boyfriend, the extra boyfriend. You two have backed into polyamory. That is sometimes how it happens. People say they're going to swing. They say they're going to have three ways. They have a few three ways with one person. Both, ideally, if people are going to back into poly, both people in the couple sort of catch feelings for this person simultaneously, and then they have to acknowledge this is more than just a play partner or a hookup or a fuck friend. Other times it happens like this, where one person in the couple catches feelings for the very special guest star, for the third who catches feelings for that one person, and the other half of the couple is like, wait, what? I did not sign up for this. Your boyfriend has essentially moved you into a house that he didn't tell you he was buying, and now you have to decide whether you want to live there and on what terms. If that is not a house that you want to live in, you need to make that clear to your boyfriend that you are moving out. And he should, if he still wants to be your boyfriend, come with you. And if he doesn't want to come with you, well, he's communicating something to you about the future of your relationship with him, which is not a positive thing he's communicating. And that may be it. It may be over. But if your boyfriend wants to still be with you, then he's going to have to move the fuck out of this house. He's going to have to end things with the 18-year-old. And you say you don't want to hurt the other guy, and you don't want to get hurt either, but you're hurting right now. If things continue the way they are right now, you will stay in pain. You'll still feel like the platonic third wheel outside of this relationship, outside of your own relationship. And if he gets dumped, he's going to get hurt. He's 18 years old. 18-year-olds, you know what they're in the business of primarily at that stage of their romantic and sexual life? Getting dumped. So it's not anything that he shouldn't expect. It's not anything that wouldn't necessarily benefit him. Getting dumped, having a relationship that ends for reasons beyond your control is part of what helps us learn and grow as relationship material, as potential boyfriends and girlfriends down the road and in the future. Sorry, if you're 18 years old and you've never been dumped, give it a week. It's probably coming. So I don't think you should be too concerned about avoiding hurting this boy. Part of honoring the campsite rule when it ends is to be as compassionate as possible, is to be as understanding and keep the lines of communication open and be empathetic, but be clear that it's ending. The campsite rule doesn't require you to never hurt that person. It's about avoiding, and the campsite rule, for those of you who don't know it yet, is we should leave our sex partners in better shape than we found them, particularly when there's a large age and or experience gap. The campsite rule doesn't mean you can never give somebody their walking papers, that you can never make someone sad. You don't want to give somebody a sexually transmitted infection. You don't want to give somebody an unplanned pregnancy. You don't want to give somebody false expectations about a future together that may not be in the offing. And that could be what's happening here. That's one of the things specifically in the campsite rule when I first drafted it, was not to give people false expectations about long-term prospects when that is not possible. But the only person who knows whether that is not possible, something long-term coming from this, is your boyfriend. What are his intentions? What does he want? You need to have a potential relationship extinction level event conversation with your boyfriend. And coming out of that conversation, there is going to be a relationship extinction level event. The question is, the unanswered question is, which relationship is going to go extinct? His with you or yours with this adult 18-year-old man that you met on Grindr? This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Casper, the online retailer of premium mattresses for a fraction of the cost. Casper is revolutionizing the mattress industry by cutting the cost of dealing with resellers and showrooms and passing those savings directly on to you. Casper's mattress is an obsessively engineered mattress at a very fair price. It's made of supportive memory foam for a sleep surface with just the right sink and just the right bounce. Plus, its breathable design sleeps cool to help you regulate your temperature through the night. And Casper's mattresses are made right here in the USA. Terry and I sleep on a Casper mattress, and it's kind of a funny story. You know, new advertiser on the podcast, they want you to try their product. We actually had a mattress that we were pretty satisfied with. And so when they offered us a free mattress, we gave it to a friend whose house we sometimes crash at when we're in LA. And then we went to LA and we slept on the Casper mattress that was supposed to be for us that we gave to him. And we loved it so much, true story, that we went home and we ordered our own Casper mattress that we paid for out of our pocket. And we forgot to use the code for the $50 off. So we paid full price, which you don't have to do, because you can buy a Casper mattress easily online, risk-free, free delivery in the USA and Canada, painless returns within a 100-day period. So you don't have to lie down in a showroom, which we did the last time we bought a mattress. And you, unlike us, can save an additional $50 toward your mattress purchase by going to casper.com/savagelove, which is where we should have gone, and we forgot to. Don't make the mistake we did. Don't pay full price. Go to casper.com/savagelove and enter the promo code SAVAGELOVE. That's casper.com/savagelove and promo code SAVAGELOVE for $50 off your mattress. Terms and conditions apply.
Hi, Dan. I have a question about fuck buddies. I dated this guy for a whole year, and it was great, but it ended, and we became best friends who have sex. And I don't know whether this is a real fuck buddy relationship or whether we are still kind of in a relationship as the sex never went away. We just kind of changed the relationship dynamic a little bit. My friends think that this is a terrible idea and that I should be totally rid of this person. But I'm having a great time, and I enjoy his company, and the sex was great, and I don't know what to do. Should I take my friend's advice, or should I continue what makes me happy?
All right, we caught you in your car, but you've pulled over to the side of the road, right? I don't like to talk to people who are driving.
No, you're fine.
Okay, so other listeners, that's why there's a little bit of ambient noise there. There's a freeway or an expressway or trucks going by. I had a follow-up question for you, and I something I need to know before I can give you an answer. Why did you guys break up? You know, if your friends think you should be rid of him and are advising you to get free of him, maybe that's because your friends watched the relationship itself. And if it was a complete shit show, if he was an asshole, if he was emotionally abusive or, God forbid, physically abusive, and that's why the relationship ended, then you should listen to your friends.
Yeah, no. So here's what happened. He had a major health scare, and it freaked him out. And he decided to make a bunch of changes, and he's like, I think we should, I think we need to break up. And I was like, cool, let's move on. I'm good with it. And the thing is that we keep circling around to each other. We keep spending all our time together. We keep sleeping together.
Would you like to be in a relationship official with him again? Because you're still in a relationship. Friends with benefits is a relationship. You're still in a relationship. You've downgraded from boyfriend, girlfriend to FWB, and it is a downgrade. Would you want to be girlfriend, boyfriend again? Perhaps something more in the future?
Yeah, in the future, yeah. Right now, I'm applying to graduate school. I'm really busy, and I go on dates with guys who are available. We both go on dates. And this is the weird thing. This is why I called you, is we get kind of turned on about hearing about each other's dates.
Marry that man.
Okay, does that make sense? We can talk about that, and it doesn't squeak each other out, and I don't get jealous, and I'm not that's my fucking man, don't touch him. I'm oh my God, you went on a date, you fucked this girl? That's awesome. Can we go home and have sex now, too?
So you enjoy each other's company. You enjoy the sex that you have. You like that each other is fucking other people, and not only do you like it or approve of it or you're okay with it, it turns both of you on equally and mutually. You guys are made for each other. This is a perfect kind of poly cuckold cuck queen sort of kismet Yahtzee situation. Yeah, you don't listen to your friends. Don't listen to your friends. Keep seeing the guy, keep hanging out with the guy. Maybe, he'll come around, post this health scare, realize you're the right woman for him, and it kind of sounds like you are. Or you'll meet somebody who's you're going to run off with, some new man will come along that'll make all other men disappear. Or he'll meet some woman and that'll be the end of it. But in the interim, you guys really enjoy each other, and you enjoy each other enjoying other people. And who knows, maybe he'll see the logic of the relationship. And are you on the page where if, you two do get back together, it doesn't have to be exclusive, considering how much you both enjoy the unexclusivity right now? You can be in a committed relationship that's not sexually exclusive. As I'm sure you know if you listen to this show.
I listen all the time to your show, and that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, well, can't we just be each other's boyfriend and girlfriend and just keep doing what we're doing? Does it really matter? One size does not fit all. We don't have to be in this marriage to death do us part, heap all this expectation on it. Can't we just have what we have and enjoy that?
Mm-hmm. That's what he says.
Maybe.
Can't we just have what we have and enjoy that?
That's what I say.
That's what you say. Okay, what does he say when you say that?
Well, I haven't said that to him.
Oh, well, for fuck's sake, ova up and say that to him already.
Okay, I will.
You're kind of doing it already. And if, every time you try to name it, he panics and runs, well, that's not somebody that you can be with for the long haul, because the long haul requires naming it at some point. And each of you having reasonable expectations that you can place on the other, and both of you having mutual obligations. That comes if it's a long haul, long term thing. Even if it's a long haul, long term FWB thing, I think it comes with reasonable expectations and mutual obligation. If you're somebody's friends with benefits and they have a crisis, you can't just be like, oh no, sorry, I'm only your friend when I'm fucking you. That's assholery. If somebody that you're an FWB with has a crisis, you should come through for them to whatever extent that is possible for you. It's a lower level commitment. It's still a commitment of sorts. But if he can never name it, then just enjoy it for what it is for as long as it lasts. And since it's not foreclosing other options for you, you're not dating other guys. You're not still looking around. You're not open to possibility. Sorry about the triple double negatives there, but I don't see any downside here. I think your friends are standing on archaic principle, and you should ignore them and do what feels right. And clearly, him and his dick and those other dicks all feel right, and you should do them all.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for calling me. I really appreciate the advice.
You're welcome. Get back on the road.
This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. They make it simple and intuitive to create your website, blog, or online store. You can create a beautiful website with Squarespace's all-in-one platform. There's nothing to install, patch, or upgrade ever. Squarespace is used by a wide range of creative types: businesses, musicians, designers, artists, restaurants, and more. If you sign up for a year, you'll receive a custom domain for free. And if you plan to create a website for your business, Squarespace has all the tools you need to get it up and running quickly. Start your free trial today at squarespace.com and enter offer code SAVAGE to get 10% off your first purchase. That's squarespace.com, offer code SAVAGE. Squarespace, make your next move.
Hi, Dan. My boyfriend and I have been together for about 8 months, and he was lasting way too long in bed, and I read some articles and we went to a doctor, and basically they said it might have been how much weed he's smoking, and now he's not smoking any weed, and now he barely lasts a minute in bed. And the problem is that we've tried a lot of foreplay, but the foreplay just turns him on too much. So if he's eating me out, he just he'll start coming after 5 minutes, and it's a problem. So how can we make him just last longer? Because it doesn't feel very good when he's only inside of me for a minute before he finishes or before he even gets in there. Thanks.
Is this a trick question? Because you know the answer. How to make your boyfriend last longer? Get your boyfriend high. That seemed to do the trick. You ran a little experiment. You removed pot from the equation, and he went from lasting too long to not lasting at all. Maybe there's a happy medium in there somewhere. Maybe there's a point at which he's high enough to slow down a little, but not high, so high that he wears you out. I would encourage you to perhaps experiment with low-dose edibles to see if you can't hit that sweet spot. They say, there were articles a few years ago about some drugs that might be in the pipeline to help men with premature ejaculation, but I have not heard any more about that all these years later. So I don't think those are in the pipeline. They're in your boyfriend's pipe already, though, and I would encourage you to break that thing back out. You don't have to get high. He doesn't have to get high every time that you have sex. There must be times when you guys are having sex where it's not about PIV. And if there aren't times when you guys are having sex where it isn't about PIV, I encourage you to start having sex at times when it isn't about PIV. Those times when you guys are just going to do mutual masturbation or oral to completion, don't get high. He doesn't need to get high. But on nights when you want to get the shit fucked out of you, when you want to make it about PIV, he should get high. Maybe not as high, a little high. And if he gets too high and it's taking him too long, he can pull out. He can use his own right hand to get himself closer, dive back in, pull out, get closer, dive back in, pull out, get himself closer, and eventually push himself to they call it the point of orgasmic inevitability, and then dive back in and finish inside you while also having provided you with plenty of dicking during the maybe not 90 minutes, but 20 minutes that you would prefer it to be. Good luck.
Hi, Dan Savage and the At-Risk Youth. I'm calling from the Midwest. I am 26 years old and have been with my husband for 10 years, married almost 2. We are right now in the midst of a very exciting thing. He met a woman on Tinder who we're thinking about having a threesome with. And I am just wondering about how to sort of go on with that. My husband is meeting her tomorrow. I'll probably meet after that. We don't want it to be like a interview process. And then I don't know what's going to happen after that. But we have made boundaries for ourselves. Do we talk about her boundaries? Do we tell her that we've never been with anyone other than each other? It's been 10 years. When people hear we're 26 and we've been together 10 years, they tend to understand that. But I don't know if that would be too much information. I usually give people too much information, so should I try to withhold a little more? Also, do we pay on dates? Do we split the bill? Just general questions.
If you don't want it to be an interview process, why the multiple meetings? First meeting with your husband to be vetted, then meeting with you to be vetted. Seems to me that you might just want to have one meeting with both of you, where the three of you hang out to see what kind of rapport the three of you have. As for the rest of your questions, I listed them because there were so many. Do we talk about her boundaries? No, of course not. Only the couple matters in the three-way with the very special guest star. Yes, of course you talk about her boundaries, and you have to be solicitous. You have to draw her out. If she's shy or hesitant to share with you her experiences or her expectations, it is on you to ask her questions, to be solicitous, to draw her out, to get that out of her. And one of the ways you get that out of someone is by just being very direct and open yourself about your expectations and your boundaries. But yeah, her boundaries matter just as much, or in some ways more. Well, I don't want to say more. I don't want to make a hierarchy of boundaries here. Everybody's boundaries matter equally, but a couple who wants to bring in a third needs to demonstrate to that third that they see them as a human being, as a person with needs and desires, and the three-way is about them too, and their boundaries are just as important to the couple as the couple's boundaries and expectations and limits should be to the third. So yeah, you talk about her boundaries. Do we tell her we've never been with anyone other than each other before? Yeah, that might be information that would be helpful for her to have. That might actually inform whether or not she does want to play with you, and you should disclose that. If you let her go in thinking you've done this a million times before, and you have a meltdown watching your husband mess around with another woman, or he has a meltdown watching you mess around with her because neither of you have been with anyone else ever since you were 16 years old, that's something she might want a little advance notice about, to be sensitive to. Or if she's not down, to politely decline the three-way, which is her right. So yeah, you do tell her that this is a new experience for both of you as a couple. Do we give her too much info, or do we try to withhold? You've got to use your best judgment. Somebody that you're going to have a three-way with wants all the relevant info. your general sexual health, whether you have any chronic sexually transmitted infections. Again, the history about the fact that you guys have never been with anyone else. And then the discussion about your boundaries and your expectations, all relevant. That your mother had breast cancer last year and is fine now, maybe not relevant to this conversation. Maybe you don't need to disclose that. Your student loan debt, not relevant. Don't need to disclose that. But everything that is, using your best judgment, relevant to the conversation about being intimate and sexual with each other, that you need to disclose. And you err on the side, perhaps, of oversharing rather than risk undersharing and having someone feel like they wound up in your bed under false pretenses. Do you pay on dates? Well, yeah. You ask this woman out on a date, basically. You two together are trying to seduce her, and I think that it would be a lovely gesture for you guys to pick up the tab when you go out for dinner or drinks, considering that you guys will have run up 2/3 of the bill. So why not pick up the last third as well? Good luck.
Hi there, my name is Matt, and my problem is that my grandma is kind of stupid, frightened, and has lost her critical thinking skills to old age. She gets letters in the mail telling her that Muslims are coming to kill us and to send money. And she does. Kills me knowing that my grandma is probably funneling money into the NRA, GOP, and possibly into the small orange hands of our president, Pussy Grabber. I can't change her mind, at least not in any lasting way due to her poor memory skills, and I don't have power over her checking account. Otherwise, I would stop all of the spending altogether. That belongs to my mom, aunt, and uncle. But maybe I can get her on a mailing list that instead frightens her about angry white people shooting up schools, the GOP taking away her health care and medical care, global warming, because that fear-mongering would be something that she should actually be afraid of instead of the insanity of the GOP. Maybe I can at least give the liberal side a chance to even the odds, and that maybe the money we can't stop her from spending gets into better hands. Money that is basically money my parents gave her anyway. I understand this is a moral gray area, but is there any mailing list you know of I could get her addressed to? Maybe an organization that I could possibly donate to in her honor, thanking her for the donation, and maybe get her on the mailing list. I understand this is a moral gray area, but I feel like it's my only option besides inaction, since I have no influence over the point of view of my aunts, uncles, who refuse to acknowledge she is losing her faculties. Does this make me an asshole? And should I just not worry about my own bloodline keeping the grabber-in-chief in power? Please, Dan, you're my only hope.
We've all seen it in our lives. Our older relatives seem to become more and more susceptible to fear-mongering, and since most of the people out there engaged in fear-mongering are right-wing fearmongers, they're seduced by these right-wing pocket-picking shitty organizations and causes. And maybe what we need is some left-wing fear-mongering. Like you say, there's a lot on the left could be fear-mongering about, like mass extinction, like climate change, climate catastrophes that are coming our way, like the Republicans coming for your Medicare, coming for your Medicaid, wanting to toss people off of healthcare for having pre-existing conditions, like the degradation that they're threatening of our environment, the pesticides that they're now allowing Dow Chemical to pour back into our fields and streams and farms, the waste that they're approving, the waste that they're now allowing, Trump is now allowing coal mining operations to dump back into streams because it's really not a stream in Kentucky without arsenic, right? So maybe what we need are some left-wing fear-mongering organizations, but I don't know of any because left-wingers place a high value on empiricism and thoughtfulness and want to not stoop to the level of fear-mongering horseshit. But maybe they should. And for all I know, there are left-wing organizations and causes out there engaged in the kind of fear-mongering, mailing list fear-mongering, that elderly people are susceptible to. And the world would benefit perhaps from them being subjected to a little left-wing fear-mongering, if not to stop them from giving money to right-wing fear-mongers, at least to balance it out. Maybe they'll write a check to World Wildlife Fund too, not just to the National Organization for Marriage or whatever. So I'm tossing this out there to listeners. If you know of a left-wing fear-mongering organization that this caller can make a donation to in the name of his grandmother to get her on some really good left-wing fear-mongering mailing lists, give us a call. 206-302-2064. Share the names of those organizations, and let's see if we can't make the world a better place using extremely shitty means.
Hi, Dan. I'm calling about the woman who was surprised that her doctor at her routine gynecological exam didn't do an STI test. I think she's assuming that the doctor is ignorant when actually the doctor's being pragmatic. Those extra tests cost extra money, and while some people's insurance may make that not a deal for them, it does add to the cost for other people. And so a doctor's not going to just add on extra tests if they know the patient's married, and thus there's a low likelihood that they would need them. I think she should do it if the patient asks for it. But if a patient was married and saw those extra tests on their bill, they might be a little hacked off, and they can be very expensive to add a couple of extra blood tests or something. So doctors try to help with that if they're good doctors. Bad doctors will just add tests without, taking into account the cost. But we shouldn't assume that this doctor was being an idiot when she actually might have tried to be helpful.
Hi, I'm calling in response to episode 550 with the submissive woman who had her dom have anal sex with her without her permission. To me, this, as someone who's been in the kink scene for 10 years plus, this just reeks of amateur behavior on both ends. Basically, what I would say is, if they've been doing this for about 3 months, they should have discussed hard limits in advance. And it doesn't sound like she told him this is a hard limit. It doesn't sound like he asked about her hard limit. This is just general status quo, default DS kind of best practices. So I'm not letting him off the hook here. Obviously, he should have had that conversation with her as the dom in advance of any play they've had. But it just, to me, it seems like they're both new at this. And I would consider it somewhat of a forgivable offense, considering he seems to have a kind of screwed up idea of what a dom is. I'd say going forward, both should just discuss hard limits up front.
Hey, Dan. I'm calling about your response to the woman in episode 550 who said that she felt obligated to give that guy an orgasm. And I was kind of surprised that you presented it as just a very black and white issue of either pity fuck or fear fuck. And I think probably a more common thing that a lot more women have experienced is just doing that out of social pressure. And, especially with hookup culture on college campuses today, there's definitely a lot of pressure on girls to feel like, that's what they have to do to be accepted. Like, can't go back to someone's house and just like make out and cuddle. Whether you realize it or not, it's kind of like frowned upon. But, and even things like blue balls or whatever from a young age, a lot of girls are kind of taught like you have to make the guy come because otherwise they're going to be in pain and you're going to be an asshole. And as far as feeling or being obligated, that'd be great in an ideal world, but I feel like not a lot of guys feel obligated to reciprocate in terms of giving head and stuff. So my advice is, do what you want to do and act like a dude. And if the guy's not satisfied, he should have to, advocate for himself.
And we're going to leave it there. 206-302-2064 is the number here at the Savage Lovecast. If you want to record a question or a comment for a future show, give us a buzz. 206-302-2064. Be sure to also subscribe to Blabbermouth, the Stranger's weekly political podcast, with me sitting in with Eli Sanders and Rich Smith on a regular basis to discuss the news of the week and politics and Gen X versus the Millennials versus the Boomers every week on Blabbermouth. Hump, my porn film festival, is touring the country right now. Go to humpfilmfest.com for information about where Hump is coming so you can get to your local theater when it's your time to get Hump. And if you want to be in Hump next year, make a film for Hump, you can go to humpfilmfest.com and click on submit for information about making a 5-minute or less porn film for Hump. Follow me on Twitter at FakeDanSavage. Follow Erica Moen on Twitter at Erica Moen. The Savage Lovecast is produced every week by Nancy Hartunian and me and the tech-savvy at-risk youth and Nancy. We'll all be back at you next week with another installment of the Savage Lovecast. Thanks for